Yo, what is going on, NFL fans? Welcome back to the J All Day Show. In today's episode, we're going to break down all the divisions in the NFL from first place to fourth place in every division. We're going to start with the AFC East and end with the NFC West. Let's get into this tier list, everybody. We're going to break it down. We're going to start with the AFC East. The winner of the AFC East, in my opinion, it's going to be a two-headed race. But I think the Buffalo Bills just have too good of a team, too good of a coaching staff to let some of these other teams sneak in and win that division, right? I didn't love the Buffalo Bills draft, right? Keon Coleman, is he even a top 10 receiver in this draft class? I don't know. Trading back in the first round, I didn't love that. They also got Cole Bishop, the safety from Utah, Dwayne Carter, the D tackle from Duke. They needed some help on defense for sure. They were dealing with tons of injuries last year. And then they went linebacker, edge, offensive tackle, cornerback, and offensive guard. So they added a lot of players. Are these guys super good players? I'll leave that for you guys to decide. All right. The next team coming in second place, who very well could win this division if everybody stays healthy, is the New York Jets. We got Aaron Rodgers healthy. I love their first pick in the draft. Olu Fashanu is one of the biggest, baddest offensive tackles in this entire draft class. He was like my second or third ranked offensive lineman at the tackle position. He's a stud, man, an absolute stud. Fallen to them at number 11, maybe the second or third best guy, depending on who you think is better with Joe Alt, J.C. Latham, and Olu Fashanu. I thought they were the three-headed monster at offensive line. Malachi Corley, he's a decent wide receiver. I was a little shocked that he fell to the third round, so it's a pretty solid pick. Then they went Braylon Allen from Wisconsin, the running back. Pretty good player, 6'1", 235. Is he an elite player? It's really hard to tell with running backs, man. Running backs can be first-round bust or seventh-round studs. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Then they drafted Jordan Travis from Florida State. I like this pick. I actually like Jordan Travis a lot more than most people did in the draft process. They did pretty good with their draft. And then next is the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins, in my opinion, they just lost too many really good players, both on the offensive side and the defensive side of the football. Vic Fangio, their defensive coordinator, is also gone. Chop Robinson going at 21. I think that's a serious overdraft. He wasn't even productive in college. He's got a lot of skills, but they don't translate to production. And if he's not producing in college, how is he going to produce in the NFL? I just don't see it. I don't love that pick there. Then Patrick Paul from Houston was a pretty solid second-round pick. I'm not going to lie. I like that pick. Jalen Wright from Tennessee, the running back. I'm like looking over their draft, and I don't see a lot of impact players that are going to change this team. That's why, for me, they're going number 3. And, of course, number 4 is going to be the New England Patriots, everybody. They drafted Drake May, number 3 overall, but I don't think he's going to play this year. I think it's going to be Jacoby Brissett's spot to win or lose. I think Drake May's just a little bit too raw. The Patriots don't have a ton of weapons. Throwing him out there would be a disservice to him. That's why, I mean, if the Patriots win 5 games, I'm going to be surprised. Then they went Jalen Polk in the second round. He's a decent wide receiver. He's not super, super good. But, I mean, that Washington college team was crazy good with Rome Odunze and Michael Penix Jr., who went to the Falcons. And they went Caden Wallace from Penn State, Robinson from Texas A&M, Baker, the wide receiver from Central Florida. They had an okay draft. And then they drafted a quarterback, Joe Milton, the third in the 6th round. That rounds out the AFC East. Now, let's move on to the AFC North. The AFC North is the most competitive division, in my opinion, in the NFL this year. I think just like last year, all 4 of these teams will have winning records. But who's going to win this division? I just don't see anyone upseating the Ravens, man. And the Ravens just figure out a way to just draft like absolute G's. Nate Wiggins, Roger Rosengarten, Idris Isaac, Devontae Walker, TJ Tampa in the 4th round. Oh my God, the Ravens absolutely crushed this draft. Super impressed by their draft. They got a good offensive lineman in Simek from Michigan State, the safety Kane from Purdue. They just crushed the draft. They're going to win this division, I think. They probably could win 13, 14, 12 games again this year. And then it's a three-headed race between the Bengals, the Browns, and the Steelers. But in the NFL, quarterback is the most important position for a reason. The Bengals are number 2. The Bengals also had a really, really good draft, guys. Look at this. They got Mims. I love Mims. He's got like 30,000-inch arms. He's a monster, and he's really young. He's like 21 years old, 6'8", 340 pounds. Man, the dude is an absolute stud. Chris Jenkins from Michigan, that really good rush defense with Michigan. I like Chris Jenkins. Jermaine Burton might be the steal of the draft. He's got some off-the-field issues, but he plays mean and dirty and nasty, and he's got great hands. I never seen a wide receiver want to hurt cornerbacks as much as Jermaine Burton does. I like that pick. And then getting McKinley Jackson from Texas A&M in the third round as well. I just love this whole draft. Josh Newton from TCU is a really good player. I just really love their draft. That's why I have them in the second place spot for this division. And then the Browns and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think their offenses are washes. I don't think Russell Wilson's going to come in and light it up. They're going to run the ball a lot. I think the Browns are going to run the ball a lot. I probably like Deshaun Watson a smidge better than Russell Wilson, but we'll see. He had good numbers last year, Russell Wilson did in Denver, but Sean Payton kind of kept him safe, kept him from hurting himself a lot with the play calls. I like the Browns here. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers, everyone. The Pittsburgh Steelers had a pretty decent draft, too. I liked their draft. Getting Troy Fontana, who's a great offensive lineman. Zach Frazier, the center from West Virginia, is very good. Roman Wilson, one of my favorite wide receivers in the draft in the third round. Amazing pick. Peyton Wilson, he fell to the third round in this draft. He was one of the better linebackers in college football. But if you watch the tape, he kind of tackles a little high for me. I think he's going to get trucked a lot at the NFL level. Let's move on to the AFC South. Winning this division for me is the Houston Texans, guys. CJ Stroud is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He was incredible on third down. Really good, solid player. And then I like the Colts to come in second place. I think Anthony Richardson in year 2, if he can stay healthy, he's going to be a really, really interesting player to watch this year. The Colts defense is pretty good. Pretty solid offensive line. I like the Colts here. Jaguars. Their defense is a little suspect for me. Trevor Lawrence doesn't have the best weapons there, so I think they're going to come in third place. And then rounding out this AFC South is the Tennessee Titans for me, guys. And now we're going to move on to the AFC West. The Chiefs are obviously going to win this division. I just don't see any other of these teams, the Raiders, the Broncos, coming in and dethroning the Kansas City Chiefs. I like the Chiefs to win this division. And then for me, number 2, I'm going with the Raiders, man. I think Aiden O'Connell is going to be a lot better than people think. If he was a first or second round pick and had the year he had last year, people would be like, okay. He had an okay year. He wasn't good. He had some good stuff, had some bad stuff like most rookies do. But let's see what he's got. But since he was a later round pick, they're like, oh, this guy's no good. But he can learn a lot from Gardner Minshew. I don't know who's going to start. I think it's going to be Aiden O'Connell. That is just where I'm at with the Raiders right now. I think that defense is going to be really good. I'm excited for the Raiders this year. They could compete for a wild card spot too. And then we got the Broncos. The Broncos and Raiders will be pretty close in my opinion. I think Bo Nix starts from day one. He's got okay wide receivers. They're not an elite unit by any stretch of the imagination with Cortland Sutton over there, but they're okay. But I like Sean Payton as a quarterback coach, right? Bo Nix was extremely accurate in college. So we'll have to see how that defense kind of holds up in Denver with the Broncos. I don't think the offense is going to light it up. Bo Nix will be okay, though. I think he'll be just fine. I think he's going to be a solid NFL quarterback. And rounding out the AFC West, in my opinion, is going to be the Chargers. Now, real quick, let's take a look at how the Chargers draft. They had a pretty good draft, but they didn't have a lot of top 100 picks, man. They had Joe Alt with number 5, great pick, right? They need that anchor at left tackle to protect Justin Herbert. But I love the Ladd McConkey pick. That's one of my favorite picks by them in the second round. Maybe a slight overdraft, but Ladd McConkey's got really good hands. He's going to be a Julian Edelman type in that offense. Junior Colson's a good linebacker. Then they went Mongaje from Alabama. And then they went cornerback, because their corners there are just a little sus. And then they added some offensive help. They added some weapons, but they're bottom of the barrel guys. Vidal, Brendan Rice from USC falling to them in the 7th round is kind of crazy. I thought he was like a 3rd or 4th round guy with the tape that I saw. And then Cornelius Johnson from Michigan, another wide receiver. So their draft was pretty good. I just don't think this team is ready to compete with the top teams in this division. It'll be a close race between those bottom 3 teams. The Chiefs should probably run away with it if they can stay healthy. All right, everyone, that wraps up the AFC for me. The Bills, Ravens, Texans, and Chiefs all win their divisions. And then the Jets, Bengals, Colts, and Raiders are going to be competing for those wild card spots, in my opinion. So let me know in the comments below. Do you like these AFC rankings for these divisions? I would love to hear what you have to say. All right, now let's move on to the NFC. Now it's time to break down the divisions in the NFC. We're going to start with the NFC East. To me, there's a clear favorite. That's the Philadelphia Eagles. The Dallas Cowboys are going to come in second, in my opinion. Then we're going to go Washington Commanders, and then the New York Giants. Okay, let's break down their draft a little bit and talk about these teams. The Philadelphia Eagles, Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown both got long-term deals. They got Jalen Hurts. The offensive line is really, really good. And then Howie Roseman just crushed the draft. To get Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean in the first 2 rounds is crazy. Then they brought in Hunt, Shipley, the running back, Anaya Smith, who I think could potentially start in the slot for the Eagles with the number 17 pick in the 5th round. Then we went Jeremiah Trotter with our other 5th round pick. He crushed the draft, guys. Absolutely crushed the draft. I still think the Cowboys are good enough to be the 2nd place team in this division, but their offensive line is not very good at all whatsoever. And they drafted a guy, Tyler Guyton, another team that traded back in the draft. Tyler Guyton could be a potentially great player in 2 or 3 years from now. But he's really young, he's really inexperienced, and I just don't think he's ready to start at the NFL level. And if they put him out there to start, there's going to be some trouble with the Dallas Cowboys. I think they're going to struggle to run the ball as well. And Marshawn Nealon's pretty good. Cooper Beebe, I like that pick in the 3rd round. Then they got Luafu from Notre Dame. Carson from the cornerback from Wake Forest. I mean, they had an okay draft. Is this going to plug all the deficiencies they have? I don't think so at all whatsoever. Coming in 3rd place, who had, I think, killer draft, the Washington Commanders. New head coach Dan Quinn, new offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury. People either love or they hate Kingsbury. I think he's going to be a good fit with the Commanders, especially with Jaden Daniels. Then they got Johnny Newton in the 2nd round. Mike Sanastrell, the cornerback, very good slot corner. Could play a little outside, but I think he's going to probably play more of the slot. Ben Sinnott, one of the better tight ends in this draft. They needed help at the tight end position. They got Christian McCaffrey's brother, Luke from Rice, the wide receiver. He's just okay. Jordan McGee from Temple, I like him as well. I think they had a really good draft. And then the Giants, I just don't believe in this team. I love Malik Neighbors, but they only had, 6 picks. Malik Neighbors, rookie, wide receiver, is going to be pretty good. Then they went Tyler Newman, the safety from Minnesota. One of the top 3 safeties in this entire draft. I like those picks. But then Andrew Phillips, Theo Johnson, Tyron Tracy Jr. from Purdue in the 5th round. They're going to struggle to run the ball. The offensive line got a little bit better, but they're not going to be good enough. I wouldn't be surprised if Daniel Jones does not get through another full season there. There's not a lot of help there offensively. They drafted no offensive linemen. How? And then they have one of the worst cornerback rooms in the NFL. They didn't draft one, 3rd round pick 6. Then they went tight end running back. How about some offensive line help? How about some more secondary help? Because you need that, especially in that division with those wide receivers. Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, CeeDee Lamb. Come on, guys. And then the wide receivers in Washington are really good too. I didn't like their draft that much. I think they come in last place for sure. All right, now let's move on to the NFC North. We got the Detroit Lions. This is going to be another two-headed monster between the Packers and the Lions. They're going to be fighting it out all season long. I just think the Lions roster, especially with that offensive line and the way they drafted, they're just a better team, in my opinion. And then we're going to go Minnesota with J.J. McCarthy. And then rounding out the NFC North is the Chicago Bears. The Bears will be better this year, but they're not going to compete with the Packers and the Lions for the division lead. Could they compete with Minnesota if the wheels start to fall off a little bit with J.J. McCarthy? Absolutely. Now let's take a look how these teams drafted. Man, I loved how the Lions drafted. They didn't have a lot of picks in this draft, but they moved up, jumping over the Packers to take Terrion Arnold. And I think if the Packers were there and Terrion Arnold was on the board, that was a done deal for sure. And then they got Rakestraw Jr., another cornerback from Missouri. I liked his tape. He's a physical, dirty player. He's just nasty, loves to hit. 5'11", 183. A lot of these cornerbacks in this draft are pretty skinny guys. Terrion Arnold's not the biggest guy either, 6 foot 189, but a little bigger than Rakestraw Jr. But the cornerbacks is kind of what blew it for this team last year against the 49ers. So they went in the first 2 rounds and got 2 really good cornerbacks, in my opinion. Then they got Manu from British Columbia, the offensive tackle. He's kind of a project type of player. And then they went safety, Vaki from Utah, Winga, the D tackle from LSU, and then Mahogany, the offensive guard from Boston College. Pretty decent draft for a team drafted near the bottom of the draft. Coming in at second place in the NFC North is the Packers. They had an okay draft. I love the Edgerrin Cooper pick in the second round. He was one of my favorite players in this entire draft. And to be able to get Javon Bullard too, with those second round picks, they knocked it out of the park. They needed some offensive line help. I think Jordan Morgan was a bit of a stretch, but there was a run on tackle, so they needed to get one. So they were like, we're going to stretch this pick out a little bit. So Jordan Morgan, Cooper, and Bullard for the top 3 picks. If you're a Packers fan, you can't complain about that at all whatsoever. Then they got Marshawn Lloyd, the running back from USC in round 3. They got Tyron Hopper, the linebacker from Missouri at the end of the 3rd round. Williams, Monk, Oladapo, Glover, Pratt, and King. Very solid draft for the Green Bay Packers. One of the top, I'll probably say top 5, top 8 drafts in this draft was from the Green Bay Packers. I love their picks. They could definitely compete for that division lead. I just think the Lions are a little bit better. Then we go to the Minnesota Vikings coming in 3rd place. They got J.J. McCarthy, and then they got that other first-round pick and got Dallas Turner at 17. That's great because you could really have flipped them and getting Dallas Turner at 10 and then J.J. McCarthy at 17. Nobody would have batted their eyes if that's how those picks played out, but they got J.J. first and Dallas Turner, 2 very, very good picks for the Minnesota Vikings. Then they got Kyrie Jackson, the corner, and Rose from Oklahoma, the offensive tackle. Place kicker, Will Richard in the 6th round, and then 2 7th-round picks that will be competing for roster spots. So they had a decent draft, you know what I mean? They only had 3 picks in the top, 120 picks. So the team's not going to be very different from last year. Dallas Turner was a big pickup. Will Kyrie Jackson compete for playing time, the cornerback from Oregon? That remains to be seen. And then we have, rounding out the group, the Chicago Bears. They can win 8 or 9 games this year, I think, for sure. They only had 5 draft picks, and one of them was a punter in the 4th round. So I don't like that pick necessarily in the 4th round. So really, you got Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, and that's about it. Kieran Amangaji from Yale didn't really play against top competition there at Yale. So he's kind of an unknown, questionable mark. He's a big-ass dude, though, 6'5", 323, 68 grade. I don't know if he plays this year. So the 2 rookies, Williams and Odunze, will help this team who got a lot better in free agency. But we all know sometimes getting all these free agents to play on the same page is not always the easiest task. That's why the Bears come in last place. One more year for me in the NFC North. Now we're on to the NFC South. We're going to go the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Atlanta Falcons, Saints, and the Panthers. The Panthers actually had a really good draft, but they're still young and inexperienced. The Saints, I don't believe in Derek Carr at all whatsoever. I don't even think he's a starter in the NFL anymore. I love the Falcons offense. Bijan Robinson, we got Drake London, we got Kirk Cousins, we got Kyle Pitts. this offense is stacked, right? So I think it's going to be a two-headed monster again. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Atlanta Falcons. Let's take a look at how these teams drafted. Tampa Bay got Graham Barton. He's a center, guard, can play a little bit of tackle. He's a Swiss Army knife as it comes to offensive linemen. He could play pretty much everywhere. Then they got Braswell, the edge. That's a steal pick from Alabama. I really like that pick. Takei Smith from Georgia. Anytime you can bring in Georgia Bulldogs, it's good for your roster. Then they went wide receiver, running back, offensive guard, tight end. Really addressing offense in this draft, guys. Only 2 defensive players taken for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they're going to do just enough if they stay healthy to win this division, but the Falcons are going to be knocking on the door. Michael Penix Jr., the surprise of the draft, goes number 8 to the Atlanta Falcons. He's not going to play at all this year. So then you're just looking at a couple guys. Ruka Amura from Clemson, the D tackle, is a solid pick. He's a big, strong, physical guy, 6'4", 300 pounds. Braylon Trice, the edge defender from Washington. Then they went Dorless from Oregon, linebacker, then running back, Jace McClellan, Casey Washington, the wide receiver from Illinois. So they went quarterback in round 1, then pretty defensive heavy the rest of the draft, besides a running back and a wide receiver. I like their draft. I don't love their draft. Definitely in the bottom half of drafts, in my opinion. We'll see how this Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix Jr. situation plays out. And then we went to the Saints. Talise Fuaga is a good pick. They need to protect Derek Carr because Derek Carr, if anyone even gets close to them, he's dumping the ball in the flat. He's trying to find the guy closest to him to get rid of the ball. He doesn't stand in the pocket and take hits and deliver the football, so you have to protect a guy like that the best you can. Kool-Aid McKinstry, the cornerback from Alabama. I like Kool-Aid. He's a pretty good player. His 40 time at his pro day was actually better than I thought it was going to be. Then they went Spencer Rattler, quarterback in the 5th round. They only had 2 picks in the top, 150 picks, man. So Spencer Rattler is an interesting pick in the 5th round. I like that. I'm curious to see how he looks next to Derek Carr. Then they went wide receiver. Jalen Ford from Texas. I liked him. D tackle and then offensive tackle. They had an okay draft. Bottom half of the draft as well for the New Orleans Saints. And then we end up rounding out this division with the Carolina Panthers, right? They really struggled to do anything offensively last year. Bryce Young was terrible. Offensive line was bad. They couldn't run the ball with Miles Sanders. It was a weird year. But they brought in Xavier Legette, the big physical wide receiver from South Carolina. Some people compare him to a DK Metcalf with that body type, right? Big, physical, hulking guy. Jonathan Brooks, probably the best running back, coming off a big injury, though, so we'll see how he looks. Then Trevin Wallace from Kentucky, the linebacker. Jatavion Sanders, the tight end, another really good pick. And then they went defense the rest of the draft. Cornerback, D-tackle, linebacker. Solid draft in my opinion. Now, let's move on to the final division in the NFC. We're going to go San Francisco. We're going to go the Rams. And then I'm going to go the Cardinals. Jonathan Gannon, another year with that defense. I think they're going to be a sneaky team to watch. They got Marvin Harrison Jr. Should be a good weapon for Kyler Murray. I just don't believe in Geno Smith. And I just don't think that this offense, losing their head coach, there's going to be a lot of growing pains with this Seattle offense, mark my words. I think the offensive coordinator left as well. So I like San Francisco, Rams, Arizona, Seattle. All right, guys, let me know in the comments below. Do you think my division winners are right for the NFC? We got Eagles, Lions, Buccaneers, San Francisco. I think we get a repeat of last year. I don't think these other teams are ready to move into those first place slots, depending obviously on what teams can stay healthy. There's always big injuries in camp. There's always big injuries the first couple weeks of the season. So injuries are going to determine a lot of these division rankings, in my opinion. So we're going Bills, Ravens, Texans, Chiefs, Eagles, Lions, Tampa Bay, and San Francisco. I think there's going to be some changing under the first place teams, but I think these first place teams are solid picks for the upcoming NFL season. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.